The Outer Rim marketplace was loud, dusty, and full of tired faces. But Darren Holt, a human engineer, worked quietly beside his half-broken cargo truck. He liked simple days, simple jobs, and simple air to breathe. But today, the air felt heavy, as if something sad was hiding inside it. As he tightened a metal valve, he heard a small sound behind him. Not loud, not sharp, but soft and shaking, like a whisper trying not to cry. "Human, please," a tiny voice said. Darren turned slowly. A little alien girl stood there, thin like a shadow, clothes torn, hands shaking, eyes big and scared. She held an old cloth doll in both hands, the type a child should hug, not offer away. She stepped closer and whispered, "My doll, for your bread, please." Darren froze, because her voice did not sound like someone asking. It sounded like someone breaking. He looked at the doll, then at her small empty hands, then at her thin face, and he understood she had not eaten in many days. He pulled a ration bar from his pocket, planning to hand it to her gently, but then he heard another sound behind him. A weak, chewing noise, slow, painful, almost desperate. He turned confused, and what he saw made his heart drop. A second little alien girl, even younger, crouched near the metal wall, pulling small pieces of grass from the cracks and eating them. She chewed like she was too tired to swallow. She did not even look up. She was starving so badly she could not stop. Darren felt his breath catch in his chest. The older sister saw him staring and rushed forward, blocking his view with her tiny arms. "Please don't be angry," she said quickly. "She is hungry. She cannot stop. She only eats grass now." Her voice shook like she expected him to shout or hit them, like this was something normal for her, like adults around her had done it before. Darren knelt slowly, lowering himself to their level, showing he was not a threat. "It's okay," he said softly. "I'm not angry." He broke the ration bar in half and handed the pieces to both girls. The older one hesitated, like she was waiting for permission from some invisible rule. The younger one looked at the food like she couldn't believe it was real. Then they ate, not fast, but carefully, as if the food might vanish. Darren watched them, a heavy ache growing inside him. No child should look this empty. No child should bargain with a doll for bread. No child should eat grass until their stomach hurt. After a long moment, the older girl wiped her mouth and stepped closer. "My name is Lyra," she whispered. "She is Rinny, my sister." Darren nodded gently. "Where are your parents?" Lyra lowered her head. "Mother worked in the mines. She did not return. The guards say she ran away, but she would never leave us. Never!" Rinny hugged Lyra's leg tightly, as if afraid someone might take her. Darren felt something deep inside him shift. A protective instinct. A human instinct. He asked softly, "Who hurt you?" Lyra's eyes flicked to the shadows behind the marketplace stalls. There were figures standing there, half hidden, watching them. Cold eyes, armored uniforms, hands on stun batons. Lyra whispered, "They did. The guards. They say we steal food. They beat us. They chase us. They say anyone who helps us will be punished too." She trembled. Rinny pressed her face into her sister's clothes. A silent fear filled both children. Darren understood now. These girls were not just hungry, they were hunted. He heard footsteps in the distance, heavy boots marching slowly, getting closer. Lyra grabbed his sleeve, her voice full of panic. "Please, human, don't give us to them. We only wanted food. We only wanted to live." Darren stood up, placing himself between the girls and the approaching shadows. His mind raced. He was only a mechanic, not a soldier. But something about this moment felt impossible to ignore. The guards stepped into the light, their faces cold and angry. One pointed at the girls. "You there, human! Move aside!" he ordered. "Those two belong to the colony authority!" Darren clenched his fists. "Belong," he repeated slowly. "They are children." The guards smirked. "Resource thieves! Parasites! You don't know what their kind can do!" Lyra flinched. Rinny whimpered. Darren looked at the guards, then at the starving children behind him. He knew a simple truth. A human does not step aside when innocent kids are being hunted. He stepped forward, not back. "Then you don't touch them," he said firmly. The guards exchanged looks, surprised a human would interfere. More boots echoed from behind the stalls. Authorities were gathering. People in the market looked away in fear. No one else would help these girls. Only him. Lyra whispered behind him, "Why? Why are you helping us?" Darren answered without turning, "Because someone should." A tense silence filled the air. The guards prepared to move. Darren braced himself. And the hook ends with one clear truth rising inside him. The guards stood in a tight line, blocking the dusty path, their helmets shining under the harsh sun. Darren kept himself between them and the two little alien girls, Lyra and Rinny. His heart beat hard, not from fear, but from anger building inside him. The lead guard stepped forward, his boots thudding against the metal ground. "You are interfering with colony law," he said, voice sharp and cold. "These creatures are marked for collection." Darren glanced back at the children. Lyra was shaking so hard her small hands kept slipping from Rennie's arms. Rennie pressed her face into her sister's side, too frightened to even look up. He faced the guard again. "What did they do?" Darren asked, his voice low but steady. "They're just kids." "They stole rations," the guard snapped. "They are drainers, useless mouths." Darren felt his jaw tighten. He had seen many ugly things in the galaxy, but calling starving children useless mouths made something hot burn in his chest. He stepped even closer. "And you think beating them is justice?" The guard did not answer. His silence was loud. Instead, he raised his stun baton slightly, a warning. "Move aside, human." Darren didn't move. He didn't blink. He didn't flinch. Behind him, Lyra whispered fearfully, "They will hurt you. They hurt anyone who helps us." Darren lowered his voice so only the girls could hear. "Stay behind me," he said. "No one will touch you." The guard scoffed. "You think you can protect them," he said. "You are alone." But the guard was wrong. Darren wasn't alone, not in the way that mattered. He had something the guards did not have, a reason to stand. He faced the guards again. "What happened to their mother?" he asked. His gut told him the truth would be ugly. The guards exchanged quick glances. Something uncomfortable flickered in their eyes. Darren noticed it. Lyra noticed too. Her fingers tightened around Rinnie's shoulder. "She was arrested," the guard said finally, "for smuggling and lying about her work quota." Lyra cried out. "That's not true," she said, her voice cracking. "She worked every day. She never lied. They took her because she refused to give us away." Darren turned sharply to the guard. "Is that true?" he asked. The guard didn't deny it. He simply lifted his baton. "Enough questions," he said. "Turn the children over." Darren felt the final line inside him snap. He wasn't a soldier anymore. He wasn't a hero, but he was human. And that was enough. "No," he said. The single word cut through the dusty air like a blade. The guard lunged forward, but Darren caught his wrist, twisting it with practiced strength. The baton fell with a loud crack. The other guards stepped back in shock. This was not supposed to happen. Darren shoved the first guard away. "You don't own them," he said, anger clear in every word. "You don't get to decide who lives and who starves." The marketplace went quiet. People watched from behind stalls, their faces hiding fear and shame. They had seen the children suffer, but no one had dared to speak. Now they watched a lone human stand against the colony authority. One guard stepped forward, pointing a scanner device at the sisters. The screen lit up with symbols and red warnings. A soft alarm beeped, echoing through the dusty air. "They are not normal children," the guard announced. They are Verothi. A ripple of shock moved through the crowd. Some gasped, some whispered, some stepped back, afraid. Darren looked over his shoulder at the girls. Lyra's eyes were full of shame. Rennie trembled, confused by the fear around her. "What does that mean?" Darren asked, his voice steady but curious. The guard answered, "They have telepathic blood, dangerous blood. If they grow older, they can influence minds. They are to be controlled, monitored, and eventually transported to the central authority." Darren stared at the guard, then at the children. They looked nothing like dangerous beings. They looked like two starving, terrified kids who had survived more pain than any child should. "So that's why you're hunting them," Darren said. "Because someday they might become powerful." The guard did not respond. He didn't have to. His silence said everything. Lyra wiped her tears and whispered, "We don't want to hurt anyone. We don't even know how." Rennie nodded slowly. Her small hand reached for Darren's sleeve, seeking comfort. Darren gently rested his hand on her shoulder. He faced the guards again. "They're coming with me," he said. "I'll take responsibility." The guard laughed. "You think you can hide them?" he said. "Everyone on this colony knows their faces." Darren smiled, not with humor, but with cold determination. "I don't plan to hide," he said. "I plan to leave." A murmur spread through the crowd. Leave the colony. Escape the guards. Take the children to safety. It sounded impossible. It sounded reckless. But to Darren, it sounded right. The guard pointed at him. "Then you are now a criminal," he declared. "Helping them means death." Darren knelt to Lyra and Rennie, his voice soft and steady. "Do you trust me?" Lyra nodded slowly. Rennie nodded too, clutching her doll tightly. Darren stood tall. "So be it," he said. He lifted the younger girl into his arms and took Lyra's hand. The guards shouted, the crowd gasped, the wind kicked dust into the air. Darren began walking towards the exit of the marketplace. He did not run. He did not look back. He walked like a man who had already made his choice. Behind him, the guards called for reinforcements. Sirens began to echo across the colony. The hunt had officially begun. But so had something far stronger. The fight of one human against an entire corrupt system for two small lives that everyone else had abandoned.
Outside Evan's house, the night sky burned with red and white lights. The hunters' ships hovered low, scanning every corner of the colony. The air buzzed with the sound of engines and tracking devices. Evan felt the ground tremble under his feet as Lyra pulled him away from the window. "We do not have much time," Lyra whispered. Her voice was calm on the outside, but Evan could see fear hiding behind her eyes. He grabbed his old toolkit from the table. It was all he had for protection. He wished he had a weapon, but Evan was not a soldier. He was just a simple worker. Lyra moved quickly to the storage room at the back of the house. Evan followed, unsure of what she was planning. She opened a metal box that had been sealed for years. Inside were small devices glowing faintly blue. "What are those?" Evan asked. Lyra picked one up carefully. "Energy dampeners," she explained. "They hide our life signatures, but only for a short time." She handed one to Evan. "Put this on your chest," she said. "It will confuse their scanners." Evan pressed the device to his chest. It felt warm, almost like a heartbeat. A loud voice echoed from outside. "Search every building," the hunter commander ordered. "No one leaves this sector." Evan's stomach twisted with fear. They were coming house to house, and his home was next. Lyra pulled him toward a hidden trapdoor in the floor. "How did you know about this?" Evan asked, surprised. Lyra gave a small, sad smile. "I learned everything about you before coming here. I know this house better than you think." They climbed down into the small underground storage area. It was dark and smelled of earth and old metal. Lyra closed the trapdoor above them. They sat together in silence as footsteps approached the house. Evan could hear the hunters moving inside. Their heavy boots thumped across the wooden floor. He held his breath. Lyra held his hand tightly, her grip firm and warm. She whispered quietly, "Do not make a sound." Above them they heard furniture being kicked aside, glass breaking, doors being ripped open. The hunters searched every corner. Evan knew they were ruthless. If they found Lyra, they would take her away, and if he tried to stop them, they would kill him. Lyra leaned close and whispered, "They can feel emotions, so calm yourself." Evan tried to steady his breathing, but fear pressed against his chest like a heavy weight. The footsteps grew louder. A hunter stood right above the trapdoor. Evan felt his entire body freeze. He could hear the alien breathing heavily, slow, strong, dangerous. Lyra closed her eyes and focused, her palms glowing faintly blue. She was masking their emotions, hiding their fear like a blanket. Evan watched her amazed. Even in danger, she protected him. After a long moment, the hunter walked away. Evan let out a silent breath of relief, but Lyra shook her head. "They are not leaving," she whispered. "They are setting up outside." Evan crawled to a small vent opening and peered outside. He saw the hunters placing scanners around the house. One of them said, "If she is here, the device will detect her when the dampener expires." Evan's fear returned instantly. "How long until it expires?" he asked. Lyra looked at her device. "Maybe 10 minutes, she said quietly. "After that, they will sense me." Evan felt the pressure rising. "Then we can't stay here," he said. Lyra nodded. "There is another way out," she whispered, "but it is dangerous." She crawled to the back wall and pushed aside a metal panel. Behind it was a narrow tunnel leading outside the colony border. "I helped build this tunnel years ago," she said, "in case someone needed to escape." Evan looked at her in surprise. "You planned this?" Lyra shook her head. "No, I hoped I would never need it." They crawled into the tunnel. The space was tight and dark. Evan had to move slowly to avoid hitting his head. Lyra crawled ahead, her glowing palms guiding the way. Behind them, the dampeners beeped softly, their power fading. Evan felt panic rising again. The hunters would detect them soon. Lyra whispered, "Keep going, do not stop." Outside, the hunters suddenly yelled, "Signal detected, she is escaping underground." Evan's blood glowed cold. They were discovered. Shots fired above them. The ground shook. Dust fell from the tunnel ceiling. Lyra grabbed Evan's hand and pulled him faster. "We are close. Just a little more," she said. They reached the end of the tunnel. Lyra pushed open a hidden hatch. Cold night air rushed in. The field outside the colony lay open and dark, but hunters were not far behind. Evan stood up and looked at Lyra. "What now?" Lyra pointed toward the hills. "There is a safe place there," she said. "We must run." They sprinted across the open field. Behind them, hunters climbed out of the tunnel entrance, their weapons glowing, their voices echoing. "Stop! You cannot escape!" Lyra's eyes glowed brighter. She sensed something. "They are calling reinforcements," she said. "A bigger ship is coming." Evan felt his heart pounding in his chest. Everything was happening too fast. His simple life was gone, replaced by danger, fear, and a woman who depended on him. But he didn't stop running. He didn't let go of her hand, because deep inside he knew one thing. He had saved her once, and he would not fail her now.
The warehouse filled with echoes of armored boots as the guards stepped deeper inside, their weapons raised and their eyes hard with authority. Dust floated in the beams of fading sunlight, making every movement look sharp and dangerous. Darren stood at the center of the open floor, his legs steady, his shoulders squared, his body shielding Lyra and Rennie completely. The lead guard pointed his rifle at him. "Step away from the Veyrathi children," he ordered. "They are government property." Darren's voice came out calm, but strong enough to cut through the tension. "They are not property," he said. "They are children." Behind him, Lyra clutched Rennie tightly, whispering something soft in her sister's ear to keep her calm. But Rennie was shaking too hard to stay still, the fear inside her too deep, too old, too familiar. The guards moved forward, forming a half circle around Darren. Their visors reflected his face, dusty, tired, but unbroken. One guard stepped close and swung his baton. Darren blocked it with his forearm, the impact sending a sharp sting through his arm. Another guard tried to shove him aside, but Darren shifted his weight, grabbed the guard's wrist, and twisted him off balance. The guard stumbled back with a shocked grunt. No one expected resistance, not from a simple mechanic. But Darren was no simple mechanic, not in heart, not in training, not in will. He had seen war. He had survived it, and he would survive this too, if it meant saving these children. The lead guard grew angry. "You dare oppose us?" he barked. "You're throwing your life away for two parasites." Darren's jaw tightened. "You call them parasites? Because you're too afraid to call them people." One guard fired a warning shot into the ceiling, the blast echoing through the warehouse. The children screamed and ducked. Darren's eyes sharpened. He stepped forward like a storm ready to break. "Put the gun down," Darren said quietly. His voice wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. But it was the kind of voice that made soldiers listen. The guard hesitated. Just a second. But that was enough. Because in that second, something else happened. A soft pulse of energy rippled through the warehouse air. It came from behind Darren. From Lyra. She clutched Rennie and shook, her eyes glowing faintly with a blue light she didn't understand. The guards noticed it immediately. "There, she's activating! The older one! She's using her telepathic field!" Lyra closed her eyes, tears falling down her cheeks. "I don't want to hurt anyone. I just want Mama. I just want her back." Another wave of faint energy pulsed outward, gentle, soft, warm. Nothing harmful, but strong enough to brush against the minds of everyone around. Darren felt it wash through him like a soft emotion. Fear, pain, longing, all mixed together. The guards staggered for a moment, confused. One clutched his helmet. Another stepped back in alarm. "She's reading us! She's dangerous! She'll break our minds!" Lyra cried harder. No, I'm not. I don't know how." Darren turned to her. "Lyra, it's okay. You're not hurting anyone. You're scared, and that's all right." She stared up at him with trembling eyes. "I saw something. I saw Mama. She is in pain. I saw her face. She is alive." Darren felt the air shift around him. Her telepathic spark wasn't an attack. It was a call. A desperate cry toward the only person she trusted. But the guards didn't care. They only saw danger. They only saw power they didn't understand. The lead guard raised his rifle again. "That's enough," he snapped. "Stand aside or we end this right now." That was the moment Darren made a decision. With no fear, no second thoughts. He walked forward and stood directly in front of the rifle. His shadow fell over the girls. His presence blocked every line of fire. He lifted his chin, meeting the guard's visor head on. "You shoot, and I promise every camera in this colony will show the galaxy exactly what you did." The guard froze, because Darren was right. In his pocket was the drone recorder he had grabbed earlier. He held it up now, its small red light blinking. "This," he said, "has everything. The beatings, the threats, the way you chased starving kids through the streets. If you kill me, this goes public." The guards exchanged tense looks. People outside began gathering, drawn by the shouting and gunfire. Shadows of civilians appeared through the broken windows, watching, filming, whispering. The lead guard growled. "You think anyone will believe a mechanic over the colony authority?" Darren stepped closer. "I don't need them to believe me," he said. "They'll believe their eyes." One guard lowered his weapon. Another stepped back. A crack in authority began to form. Small, but real. Lyra watched with wide eyes. Rennie clung to her sister, whispering softly. Darren, don't get hurt." Darren heard her tiny voice, and his heart tightened. He stood taller, stronger, unbreakable. "You will not touch these girls," he said. "Not while I am standing." The guard shifted uncertainly. For the first time, they didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to break a man who refused to bend. Outside, more civilians gathered, phones lifted, cameras recording. The guards felt the pressure. The colony was watching. The galaxy might be next. The lead guard glared at Darren. "This isn't over," he said. "Not by a long shot." Darren didn't move. "I'm counting on that," he replied, "because I'm going to end it." The guards backed out of the warehouse slowly, retreat driven by fear of the crowd, not fear of the law. Their boots faded into the distance. The sirens dimmed for now. Darren turned back to the children, kneeling beside them. Lyra wiped her eyes. You protected us," she whispered. Darren placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "I will keep protecting you, until we save your mother, no matter what it takes." And in that dusty warehouse, with night falling outside, a small spark of hope flickered to life. A spark that would change everything.
Night covered the colony like a heavy blanket, dark and silent, hiding the broken buildings and the metal streets beneath shadows. Inside the abandoned warehouse, Darren sat beside Lyra and Rinny, watching them breathe softly, finally resting after hours of fear. But he knew their safety would not last. The guards would return, stronger, angrier, and with orders from the governor himself. Darren checked the stolen drone recorder again, the tiny red light blinking softly in the darkness. Inside, it was the truth, the evidence of the guards beating the girls, chasing them, calling them property. If he could get this footage out of the colony, the entire system could collapse. But first, he had to save their mother. Lyra lifted her head weakly. "Darren, is Mama really alive?" she whispered. Her voice carried hope and fear together. Darren nodded, showing her the prisoner code on his device. "She is in Containment Sector 12, he said. "We're going to bring her home." Rinny crawled into his lap, tired but trusting. "You won't leave us, right?" she whispered. Darren wrapped his arms around her gently. "Never," he said. "Not ever." Outside, distant alarms began to echo again. The governor had sent more troops, searching every block for them. Time was running out. Darren stood and helped the girls to their feet. "Stay close to me," he said. "We're going to the mines." They left through a back door, slipping into the shadows of the colony outskirts. The wind was cold, brushing dust across their faces. Darren moved quickly, but carefully, checking every corner, every rooftop, every sound. Lyra held Rinny's hand tightly, refusing to let go, even for a moment. The path to the mines was long and dangerous. Massive diggers slept like silent beasts in the dark. Pipes hissed steam into the air. Dim lights flickered along metal walkways. When they reached the entrance of Containment Sector 12, Darren crouched behind a rusted generator. 2 guards stood at the door, armored and alert. Darren whispered to the girls, "Stay hidden here." He placed the throne recorder carefully in Lyra's small hands. "If anything happens to me," he said softly, "run to the outer ridge and call for help. This device will save you." Lyra shook her head quickly, tears forming. "No, you promised you wouldn't leave us." Darren touched her cheek gently. "And I won't. But I need you to be brave." Rinny reached up and pressed her tiny forehead against his chest. "I'm scared," she whispered. Darren kissed her hair. "I know," he said. "Be strong for your mom." Then he stood, ready to move, ready to face whatever waited inside. He approached the entrance quietly, stepping into the dim yellow light. The guards noticed something too late, because Darren moved with the precision of a trained soldier. He grabbed the first guard's rifle, twisted it away, and knocked him out with a fast blow. The second raised an alarm, but Darren struck before the weapon fired, sending the guard crashing into a wall. The corridor inside was narrow and cold. Prison cells lined the walls like metal cages. Voices whispered from inside, tired, hopeless voices. But one voice called out weakly, a voice that made Lyra gasp softly behind the generator where she hid. "Mama," she whispered to herself, tears falling. Darren followed the sound until he reached cell 47B. Inside, sitting on the floor, was a thin alien woman with the same eyes as Lyra. She looked up slowly, barely believing what she saw. Who are you?" she whispered, her voice weak. "I'm here for your daughters," I said softly. "They're alive, and they need you." The woman covered her mouth as tears fell. "Lyra, Rinny, my babies. I thought—" Her voice broke. Darren opened the cell door using the guard's stolen passkey. The woman stumbled out, leaning on him for support. When they reached the exit, Lyra ran forward, her small feet pounding the ground. "Mama!" she cried, voice breaking with joy and pain. Rinny followed her, arms wide, tears rolling down her cheeks.
Their mother fell to her knees as both children crashed into her embrace. Her arms wrapped around them so tightly, it seemed she might not let go again. Darren stood a few steps away, watching the moment quietly. Something warm filled his chest, something he had almost forgotten, the feeling of doing something right. But their reunion didn't last long. A loud alarm suddenly blared across the sector. More guards were coming. The governor himself had issued a final command: no survivors, no witnesses. Darren lifted the mother into his arms and took Lyra's hand. "We have to move," he said firmly. "They're right behind us." They ran through the mine corridors, dodging lights and jumping over debris. Outside, the night sky lit up with search drones scanning every open space. But civilians were gathering too. Word had spread of Darren's stand in the marketplace. People were filming, shouting, demanding answers. The governor shouted orders, but no one listened anymore. Darren stepped forward, holding the drone recorder high. "This," he said loudly, "is the truth." The recordings played on dozens of screens as civilians streamed the footage live. Millions watched across nearby colonies. The galaxy saw the truth. The governor fell within the hour. By dawn, Lyra, Rennie, and their mother stood beside Darren on the transport platform. The colony citizens offered food, blankets, and support, but Darren refused any reward. He looked at the three of them, tired, hurt, but together, and knew he already had what mattered. Lyra stepped forward and held up her small cloth doll. "This is yours now," she said softly. "You gave us food. You gave us hope. You gave us family." Rennie took his hand. "No one ever looked back for us," she whispered, "but you did." Darren smiled gently. "And I always will." As the transport lifted into the sky, carrying them toward a safer world, a new beginning formed, a family built not by blood, but by choice, a human who refused to turn away, and two children who finally had someone to hold on to. The galaxy would remember this day, the day a human saved hope itself.